Hello, Mr. Geiselhardt here, and in this assignment we're going to look at linear equations. Specifically, we're going to look at equations in the slope-intercept form. And what is the slope-intercept form? Well, that's just where we have y equals mx plus b, where we say that m is the slope of the line and b is the y-intercept. Now, when you're looking at this, we almost always put the mx before the b, but it doesn't always have to be that way. You could do y equals b plus mx. It's just important to note that the letter, or the number rather, in front of the x is always the slope, and the constant, which is just the number without a variable, is always the y-intercept. So if we look at this first example, it says we have a graph that is y equals 3/4 x minus 9. So if we want to graph this, we're just going to start with the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is just the number here. Now it's asking me to write that as an ordered pair. So the coordinates are going to be 0, -9. And make sure you put in parentheses and the comma because we want it written as an ordered pair. The slope is just given to us as the number in front of the x, so that's 3/4. Now at this point, we should talk a little bit about what slope means. Slope, which we abbreviate with an m, is usually written as rise over run. It can also be written as the slope is equal to delta y over delta x, which means the change in y over the change in x, or if we were given 2 points, we would write it as y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2 if we're given 2 points on a line. Now, the 2 points on the line would be given to us in the form x1, y1, and x2, y2. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can graph this line. Now, the way we graph our homework is the 2-point method, which basically just means you just have to touch 2 points on the graph, and that will graph the line for you. So, excuse me, in this point, my y-intercept is -9. So that means I have to go to the y-axis. Now, this is my y-axis right here. So I find where it's -9 on the y-axis. And it's -9 on the y-axis right there. As soon as I touch that point, a little red box will show up and a line is drawn in. Now, when I touch it again, it'll give me another box and it'll draw the line in between those 2 points. Since my slope is 3/4, if I look at this in terms of rise over run, that means I have to rise 3 and run means to the right 4. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go from this point up 3 points and over 4, and I'm going to put another point there. So now I have up 3 over 4, and that will be the graph of that line. So let's go ahead and take a look at a different type of problem. This one's very similar. You're still given the equation. But now if we look at this one, and I'm actually going to jump down to number 4, I want you to notice that they still want us to go ahead and graph this, but they're no longer giving us the equation. They're just giving us 2 points on the line. Well, if they're just giving us 2 points, then it's pretty easy to graph. I just plot those 2 points. So I have -2, 1, which is right there, and then I have 8, -9. So I go over 8 in the positive x direction, and then I go down 9, and that will put my point right there. So if you're given 2 points, all you need to do to graph them is just to plot them and then draw the line that goes in between them. But now if we want to write the equation, it becomes a little bit more challenging. So I'm just going to rewrite the 2 coordinates. So -2, 1 is the first point, and 8, -9 is the second point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call those 2 points x1, y1. So this one will be my x1 and then my y1. This other one is going to be my x2 and my y2. Well, I'm not given the y-intercept. So what I have to do is first of all find the slope using the slope formula I talked about a minute ago. And that slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is equal to the slope. So I'm going to have -9 minus 1 over 8 minus a -2. So when I simplify that on top, -9 plus 1 is -10. Negative 8 minus a negative 2, you add the opposite, so that will give me a positive 10. You should always reduce your slope if possible, and fractions in general if you can. In this case, that reduces to negative 1. So now I can kind of write the equation. I would have y equals, I know my slope is negative 1, x, and then plus b. Well, I need to find b, which is my y-intercept. To do that, I'm just going to choose one of my 2 points. Now, it doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm just going to choose the point negative 2, 1. So y is 1 equal to negative 1 times negative 2, because negative 2 is x, plus b. Now, if I solve this equation, that will give me my answer. So it'll look something like this. 1 equals negative 1 minus 2 times the negative 2 is a positive 2 plus b. So then if I subtract 2, subtract 2, I end up with b is equal to negative 1. Once we know b is equal to negative 1, we can write the equation. So the equation is just going to be y equals my slope, which is negative 1 times x, and then my y-intercept is just minus 1. So if we fill in the answers in the blanks, my slope is negative 1. My y-intercept is also negative 1, but remember to write that as an ordered pair. And so my equation is going to be y equals negative 1x, or just negative x, and then minus 1. And now I'm just going to double check to make sure those answers are correct, and it looks like they all are correct. Again, this is Mr. Geiselhart, and I hope that was helpful.